Let me tell you something about how quiet a picture can be. Still, frozen, deceptively innocent. That's how my story starts, not with yelling, not with slamming doors or lipstick-stained collars, but with a photo. I was at my desk on a rainy Thursday afternoon. My office smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams, standard. I work as a commercial architect, which sounds impressive until you realize it mostly involves trying to convince rich people that open floor plans aren't a personality trait. Anyway, I just finished a rough call with a client who thought modern minimalism meant putting a $600 beanbag in a white room. I was seconds from closing my laptop when I got the text. It was from my friend Pete, who's one of those guys who always texts in lowercase like capital letters are too committed for him. The message was simple. Bro, is this Ashley? He attached a photo. I clicked it, thinking nothing of it. Probably some viral meme or someone who looked like her. But no, it wasn't someone who looked like her. It was her, my wife, Ashley, wearing a summer dress I'd never seen before, short, floral, expensive. She was at an outdoor bar, laughing like someone had just whispered the secret to eternal happiness. Next to her was a man I had seen before, once, at her office party. Chad? Chase? Something with a C and too many crunches. His hand was on her lower back, too familiar. And her hand? Her hand was wrapped around his wrist like a favorite bracelet. I stared at that image for a full minute. Not angry, not hurt, just studying it, like it was a blueprint for a life I hadn't built. Then I zoomed in. The devil is in the details. They weren't just sitting close. They were tucked into each other like matching puzzle pieces. Her head tilted toward his with that look. You know the one. That this is my favorite person in the room look. I used to get that look. A long time ago. When we were broke, and she still used coupons, and we had sex on an air mattress that deflated slightly every hour like it was sighing at our choices. I didn't reply to Pete. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't even breathe hard. I just saved the image. And for the first time in our 7-year marriage, I left work early. I pulled into the driveway like a man returning from war, only the war hadn't started yet. It was oddly quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl because you know it's temporary. The porch light was still on even though the sun hadn't finished setting. Ashley always forgot about that. Said it gave the house a romantic glow. Funny. Now it just made the place look haunted. When I stepped inside, I was met with the faint smell of lavender and betrayal. Her shoes, those ridiculous $400 heels she bought after her promotion, were by the door. A signal flare for what kind of evening she thought she was coming home to. Hey babe, she called from the kitchen, like nothing was wrong. Like my marriage wasn't hanging by a thread I hadn't even realized was fraying. Her voice still had that fake cheer in it. The same tone she used with our neighbor when she didn't want to admit she forgot to bring the garbage bins in. Polite. Painless. Plastic. I didn't answer right away. I walked slowly. Intentionally. I wanted to hear the sound of my own footsteps echo through the house we picked together. The one we said would be our forever home. Turns out forever had an expiration date. She turned and smiled when she saw me. You're home early. Yeah, I said, setting my keys down. Had a light day. Nice, she replied, opening a bottle of white wine. Chardonnay. I deserve this, drink. I was just thinking we should watch that show tonight, the one with the murdery podcast couple. You'll love it. That show. That fake laugh she was practicing again. She had no idea what was coming. I leaned against the counter. Calm. Still. The image Pete sent was burning a hole in my pocket, but I didn't pull out my phone. Not yet. Instead, I looked her in the eyes and said, Do you love me? She froze, wine glass mid-pour. What kind of question is that? A simple one, I replied, still calm. Yes or no? She laughed, but it was thin. Of course I do, Logan. What is this? Some kind of weird anniversary prank? Anniversary's in February. She paused. Right. I nodded. Just checking. Because I saw a picture today. She didn't flinch. Impressive. That was rehearsed. Picture of what? She asked, still in character. I finally pulled out my phone, opened the image, and turned it toward her. Her eyes landed on it, and for a brief moment, her whole face flickered. Not panic. Worse. Recognition. That's not what it looks like, she said, the oldest line in the book. It looks like you and Chase or Chad, or whatever his protein shake name is, having a romantic drink at a rooftop bar you said was too pretentious when I suggested it. She swallowed. Hard. I can explain. I know you can, I replied. You're good with words. Especially the ones you don't say. Silence. Real silence now. No footsteps. No fake laughter. Just two people staring across a kitchen island full of ghosts. You want to tell me how long this has been going on? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Logan, how long? Her voice dropped. A few months. Define few. 5. I let that sit. 5 months. 150 days of lies. Of smiles over morning coffee and casual touches that meant nothing. 5 months of watching me pour everything I had into a marriage while she poured Chardonnay and whatever else into someone else's company. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded and walked past her. Where are you going? She called after me. Bedroom, I said. To pack. Don't worry, I'll be polite. You can finish your wine. She didn't follow. She just stood there, glass in hand, while the house echoed with the sound of drawers sliding open and zippers dragging shut. I left with one suitcase and a mind full of unfinished thoughts. But don't worry. This isn't the part where I disappear. This is the part where I get smart. Let me tell you something about silence. It can be louder than a scream. That night, after I left the house, I didn't drive anywhere specific. I just drove. One hand on the wheel, the other wrapped tight around the last shred of my self-respect. I ended up at a 24-hour diner off the interstate. The kind with flickering lights, apathetic waitresses, and a jukebox that plays Patsy Cline when no one's looking. I ordered black coffee and sat in a corner booth that smelled like syrup and forgotten dreams. That's when the questions hit me, rapid fire. Why now? Why Chase? Why 5 months? How many lies had I swallowed just to keep peace at the dinner table? I could have played it off, said the picture was a misunderstanding. But Ashley's face had told me the whole story. No one looks at a photo like that unless they've already memorized it from the inside out. Then came the moment that took my quiet pain and lit it on fire. I opened my email. Now, let me clarify. I wasn't snooping. Not really. Ashley and I shared a joint cloud drive, mostly to swap recipes and family photos. But I'd forgotten she had auto-sync on her work phone. And there it was, buried in a folder labeled Client Docs. A video. Naturally, I hesitated. You don't go looking for buried treasure in a graveyard unless you're ready to find bones. But I pressed play. No nudity. No scandalous scenes. Nothing that'd get flagged online. Just Chase. Shirt unbuttoned, looking like a third-string romance novel cover model, lying on a hotel bed. And Ashley, my wife, filming herself in the mirror, giggling like a teenager who'd just broken curfew. Her voice, soft and dangerous. Say hi to my husband, Chase. He still thinks I'm in Fresno. Chase winked at the camera. Thanks for the weekend, Logan. You're a real team player. They laughed. I didn't. I watched the whole thing like a statue holding back a landslide. Then I saved it. Not out of masochism, but out of necessity. See, when someone hands you the blade they plan to use on you, the smartest thing you can do is keep it. And that's when the gears started turning. This wasn't just about her cheating. This was about being mocked. Played. Turned into the punchline of someone else's private joke. Ashley didn't just cheat. She invited me into the audience. And that rewired something inside me. I called my buddy Eric the next morning. Old college roommate. Now an attorney with a mean streak and zero tolerance for liars. Logan, he said, answering on the first ring. You sound like a man with a grudge and a folder full of evidence. Bingo, I said. You want legal? Or revenge? Both. He chuckled. Now we're talking. The next steps were quiet. Surgical. Ashley thought I was licking my wounds. She had no idea I was loading the gun, metaphorically, of course. There's a strange calm that comes over a man when he's no longer trying to save something. See, before that video, I was still holding out, maybe not for love, but for dignity. For closure. For the version of Ashley I married. But once you hear your wife's lover thank you by name in a hotel bed, that last thread snaps. Clean. No fray. Just cold air where a future used to be. And that's when I got to work. The first order of business? Information. If you're going to dismantle a life, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. Not just the surface-level stuff, what they did, where, how many times, but the kind of details that make people second-guess every smug decision they've ever made. I didn't ask Ashley anything. That would have tipped my hand. Instead, I opened a new folder on my laptop, called it Blueprint. Fitting, right? I'm an architect. Revenge should have good structure. Inside the folder, I started organizing. The rooftop photo from Pete. The hotel video from the cloud. A synced calendar entry labeled conference. San Diego that matched the date on Chase's boxers. Yes, really. Email exchanges between Ashley and C, where they joked about late-night strategy sessions and keeping Logan in the dark, literally and figuratively. I stared at that last one for a while. Keeping Logan in the dark. That one lit a fuse. I backed up everything to a flash drive. Then I called Eric again. I've got a file. I figured you would, he said. You want to play this in court? Eventually, I said. But first I want to make her squirm. You're thinking long game? I'm thinking checkmate. Eric paused, then said the most beautiful sentence I've ever heard. Then let's start with the asset freeze. Ashley didn't know this, but 2 years ago, I started handling our joint investments through a separate LLC for tax purposes. Guess who owns 80% of it on paper? Me. So with one email to Eric and a 5-minute call to my accountant, I froze access to every account tied to the LLC. Chase could keep her warm at night, but I'd make sure he couldn't keep her comfortable. 2 days later, Ashley called. Hey, she said, voice light. You good? I looked at the phone like it owed me rent. Then I answered. Peachy. You. Yeah, just weird not having you around. It's quiet. Guess Chase isn't much of a talker. Silence. You saw the video, she said. I saw everything. She sighed. It wasn't supposed to go that far. It just happened. 5 months happened? I didn't plan it, Logan. No, you just didn't stop it. She had the nerve to get defensive. So what now? You ghost me? You lawyer up? What happened to talking like adults? We can talk, I said. But you'll want your own attorney. Excuse me. Check your accounts. I hung up. 10 minutes later, I got the first angry text. You froze our savings? Followed by. That's half mine, Logan. And the one that made me smile. You're being petty. Petty. The word cheaters love to use when the fallout inconveniences their lifestyle. I didn't reply. I was busy with the second phase. See, I wasn't going to just punish Ashley financially. That would be too easy. Too quiet. I wanted truth. Exposure. I wanted the lie she built to collapse in front of her. So I reached out to Ashley's company anonymously using a burner account. Subject line. Professional conduct concern. Possible HR violation. In the email, I attached the photo and the hotel video. I didn't write a novel. Just 4 lines. To whom it may concern. I believe your director of client relations and her subordinate have been conducting more than meetings on company time. If this violates any company policy, you may want to investigate further. Sincerely, a concerned observer. 2 days after that, Chase was called into HR. Ashley followed the next morning. That night, she texted me again. Are you trying to ruin my career? I stared at the message, sipping coffee, the same way you watch a campfire burn through a cabin someone else set ablaze. I typed. No, I'm just letting it collapse under its own weight. I'm just the wind. That weekend, I saw Chase's car parked outside her townhouse. You'd think they'd be lying low. Instead, Ashley posted a photo of herself on Instagram in a new dress, captioned, Fresh starts in good wine glass, #freedom, #chapter 2. Freedom. She thought this was a beginning. She didn't know it was the middle of the end. Because what came next? That was going to rewrite everything. See, while she was sipping Merlot with her gym bro boyfriend, I was having dinner with her sister. Now before you go jumping to conclusions, no, I didn't hook up with Ashley's sister. This isn't that kind of story. It's better. Her name's Danielle. 3 years younger than Ashley, sharper than a box of tacks, and the only one in that family who ever treated me like more than a support beam in Ashley's dream house. We'd always gotten along, probably because we were both fluent in sarcasm and allergic to fake people. She reached out to me a few days after the HR fallout hit Ashley's office like a brick through stained glass. Hey, you okay? I stared at the text for a while before I replied. Define okay. She called instead of texting back. Smart move. I was too tired to dodge emojis. Let me take you to dinner, she said. You could use some normal human conversation. Or at least a place to vent where no one's wearing a name tag. So there we were, a quiet little Italian place on the other side of town. No white tablecloths. Just good pasta, cheap wine, and dim lighting that makes your problems feel smaller. We sat across from each other, and I told her everything, well, not everything. Just enough for her to get the shape of it. When I got to the part about the video about that line, thanks for the weekend, Logan, Danielle stopped twirling her fork. You're kidding. Wish I was. She exhaled. She always did love attention. But this is another level. I nodded. Guess I was just the husband version of duct tape. Keep things together until someone more exciting came along. Danielle frowned. You were a good man to her, Logan. Too good, probably. And if she couldn't see that, it says everything about her and nothing about you. I laughed quietly. You know what she said in one of her texts? She said I was being petty. Danielle's eyebrows shot up. Petty? After she paraded you into a public affair with a guy who looks like he lost a fight with a spray tan bottle. Exactly. She leaned in, voice softer now. Do you want to get back at her? I already am, I said. Trust me. The walls are closing in. I just haven't decided which one to drop first. She smiled. Good. Because she needs to learn that some people don't just roll over. Some people bite back. And that's when Danielle said something that took my whole plan and added a secret weapon. Did you know she was planning to sue for alimony? I blinked. What? She's been talking to a friend of hers, some divorce lawyer named Beth. Said she was going to play the dependent spouse card and come after your retirement accounts. She cheated. She thinks that won't matter. It hit me like a cold shower. Ashley was already positioning herself to turn this betrayal into a profit. Oh, I said, smiling like a man who just remembered where he hid the extra bullets. She wants to play legal games? Danielle nodded. She's not as smart as she thinks she is. Then let's see how she handles losing the game she's trying to rig. We clinked glasses. That night, I called Eric again. She's planning to file and spin it like she's the victim. Typical, he muttered. But guess what? Cheaters don't get medals in court. What can we do to get ahead of it? He paused. We file first. Won't that look aggressive? No. It'll look like what it is, a man taking initiative to protect himself. He explained that by filing first, I'd set the narrative. And with the documentation I had, photos, emails, video, I could make it very, very clear to the judge why this marriage ended. And in our state, misconduct during the marriage can absolutely impact division of assets and spousal support. So we filed. Quietly. Strategically. No fanfare. Just a single certified envelope delivered to her door the following Tuesday, right after she posted a boomerang of herself and chased clinking glasses on Instagram. #healing, #new beginnings. Healing. Right. Her new beginning had an expiration date, and it was printed in legal ink. By Thursday, her lawyer called Eric. You could practically hear the panic under the professional tone. They weren't expecting me to strike first. They assumed I'd mope around, cry into a blanket, and eventually hand over half my life out of emotional exhaustion. But the man she married? He was gone. The man she underestimated? He just walked into the courtroom with a flash drive and a folder titled Chronicles of Stupidity. Meanwhile, I wasn't done. Oh no. I had one more ace up my sleeve, and this one? It involved her precious social status. Ashley loved to be seen. PTA meetings, fundraisers, yoga retreats, you name it. She curated her life like an Instagram feed. Carefully filtered. Always flawless. So I took a detour and scheduled a casual lunch with the head of the local community foundation she'd been campaigning to join. How'd I get the meeting? Let's just say Danielle made the introduction. Hi, I'm Logan, I said, shaking the director's hand. I heard you've had a rough couple of months. I smiled politely. Not rough. Clarifying. Then I slid a copy of Ashley's affair file across the table, neatly bound and void of malice. Just thought you should see this before making any final decisions about your board members. They never returned Ashley's application. That weekend, she messaged me again. You're destroying my life. I stared at the screen, then typed. No, I'm just showing you what it looks like without the lies. Some people play victim because they think the world will offer a cushion. Ashley? She didn't want a cushion. She wanted a throne. And she assumed that by the time I found my spine, it'd be too late to stop her from crowning herself queen of our broken kingdom. She was wrong. Let me walk you through what happened the week after the divorce papers hit her doorstep like a brick through stained glass. First came the peace talk, email, subject line. Let's not make this ugly. Classic Ashley. Try to pull the ripcord after the plane's on fire. Logan. I've had some time to think. Maybe we let the lawyers step back and talk like we used to. You're hurting, and I understand that. I still care about you, and I don't want this to become a war. Let's meet. Coffee. I stared at the email like it was written in invisible ink. Ashley still believed she could steer the ship with a soft tone and a smile that used to work when things were simple. I forwarded the email to Eric. She's asking for coffee. Thoughts? He replied one line. If she wants coffee, tell her she can order it in court. So, I didn't meet her. And that made her mad. Because now, the woman who thought she could break me and walk away clean suddenly realized she wasn't dealing with the man she married. She was dealing with the one she created. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just a knock, like she was delivering a Hallmark apology. I opened the door and found her standing there in a cream sweater and jeans, her approachable and misunderstood outfit. "Logan," she said, soft, like a lullaby with poison under the melody. "Can we talk?" I didn't invite her in. "You've got 2 minutes," I said. "The sidewalk's clean." She blinked, thrown off. "I didn't expect this cold version of you." "That's because the warm version got frostbite watching you laugh with another man over drinks I paid for." Her lips tightened. "Look," she said, folding her arms, "I know what I did was wrong. But this? The court filing, the money freeze, dragging my name through the mud." "Dragging?" I cut in. "Ashley, you filmed yourself cheating and saved it to our shared cloud folder." "I didn't drag your name through anything. I just handed people the mirror." She had the audacity to tear up. Not a full cry. Ashley didn't do those unless there were witnesses, but a misty-eyed performance designed to trigger guilt. "I didn't plan for any of this," she whispered. "No," I said calmly. "You just planned to cheat, lie, and then profit. This mess? That's the part you didn't plan for." Silence. Then she hit me with the last card in her purse. "Chase lost his job," she said. "HR let him go. No severance. They're investigating me next. I might lose everything." I almost said, "Good." But I didn't. Instead, I gave her the one thing she never gave me: honesty. "You lost me." That was everything. I closed the door before she could say another word. She didn't knock again. The next morning, my phone rang. Blocked number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but I had a feeling, and I was right. "Logan." The voice was unfamiliar, smooth, and vaguely annoyed. "This is Richard Henley. I'm representing Ashley." Of course she'd upgraded to a shark. "Mr. Henley," I said. "You sound expensive." He didn't laugh. "We're prepared to countersue on the grounds of emotional distress, career sabotage, and financial manipulation." There it was. Her revenge play. I leaned back in my chair. "Interesting. And what evidence do you have?" A pause. "We have a timeline of her account lockouts, the anonymous email to her office, and the fact that you filed for divorce with extreme prejudice." Her words. "She cheated," I said flatly. "And I have receipts. Literally. Digital ones." Another pause. Longer this time. "We'd like to avoid a trial." I smiled. There it was. The bluff folded. "Of course you would," I said. "Because if this goes to trial, your client gets publicly roasted over an open flame, and you don't get paid because she's unemployed." He sighed. "What do you want?" That was the million-dollar question. I had what I wanted emotionally: freedom, clarity, leverage. But strategically? "I want my name cleared," I said. "I want her to withdraw her claim to spousal support, split the assets 60-40 in my favor, and issue a written acknowledgement of infidelity filed with the court." "That's excessive. Tell her to think of it as community service. For wasting 7 years of my life." He said he'd talk to her. By the end of the week, she agreed. No payout. No alimony. Just a clean cut and a court file stamped with her mistake. I didn't get even. I got better. Danielle texted later that night. Heard the surrender was signed. "You good?" "Better than good," I replied. "I'm free." She replied with a confetti emoji and a photo of her raising a glass. Not bad for a man who was supposed to break. When the legal dust settled, I figured things would go quiet. They didn't. See, the fallout from betrayal has a ripple effect. And while Ashley was busy licking her wounds and unfollowing mutual friends, I started to notice the second wave of reckoning, our inner circle unraveling. A couple we'd vacation with every summer? Turns out they knew. Had known for months. Ashley had cried on their couch about how distant I'd become. They let me buy them dinner the weekend after one of her rendezvous. Smiled in my face while knowing full well I was eating crow. I deleted them faster than a spam call. But the real gut punch? Pete. Yeah, that Pete, the one who sent the original photo. He sat me down over beers one night and said, "Logan, I didn't know how to tell you. I thought maybe it was a one-time thing." I didn't yell, didn't flip the table, just looked him in the eye and said, "A one-time thing is a broken glass. What you sent me was a shattered window." He got the message. We still talk, but not like before. That's the price of betrayal. Sometimes you lose the side characters too. But here's the twist. I didn't just lose people. I gained clarity. My evenings? Mine. My apartment? Peaceful. My thoughts? My own again. And in that quiet, I rediscovered something I hadn't heard in years. My own voice. 3 months after the divorce finalized, I threw a barbecue. Petty? Maybe. But cathartic? Absolutely. I invited real friends. People who showed up when the house was burning instead of watching it on Instagram. Danielle came too. Not as a date, just as someone who'd earned her seat at the table. And guess who showed up uninvited? Chase. Yep. Captain Protein himself. I saw him walking up the driveway, all shoulders and insecurity. Logan, he said, hands raised. Look, man, I came to say I'm sorry. Really, I flipped a burger. You want a plate or a moral compass? He smiled like a guy who didn't understand the joke. I didn't know she was married when we started. I squinted. The wedding ring didn't tip you off? He shrugged. She said it was complicated. It wasn't. It was a marriage. You just helped bury it. He stood there awkwardly for a second, then turned to leave. Chase, I called out. He turned back. She'll do it to you too. He didn't respond, but I saw the fear in his eyes. Turns out karma doesn't need an invitation. It shows up anyway. Months later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No stamp, no name, just my first name on the envelope. It was from Ashley. I read it standing in the kitchen. Logan, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and you're right not to, but I wanted to say thank you for how you handled everything, for the dignity you gave me even when I didn't deserve it. I was cruel. I was selfish, and I think I needed to lose you to understand what I had. Chase and I aren't together anymore. He blamed me for his firing, said I ruined his life. Maybe I did. I'm working part-time now, living with a friend. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I hope you're happy. I really do. Hey, I folded the letter and slid it into the back of a drawer I don't open much. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because sometimes even a villain's confession belongs in the archives. So where am I now? I'm not over it. That's not the goal. I'm through it. There's a difference. I got a new apartment. Smaller, quieter, but it's mine. Every wall, every shelf, mine. I started dating again. Slowly. No desperation, no rebound flame. Just coffee, conversations, and learning how to be open again without bleeding. I picked up boxing. Not out of rage, but focus. There's something cleansing about hitting a bag that never hit back. As for Ashley, I haven't seen her since the letter. I don't plan to. And the revenge? People think revenge is about explosions. No. Revenge is peace in a house someone tried to burn down. It's smiling in the mirror because the man staring back didn't cave, didn't crawl, didn't let someone else write the ending. So if you're reading this and you've been there, or you're there now, hear this. You're not broken. You're just under renovation. And sometimes, the best rebuild starts with demolition.